Ratings agency Fitch foresees that Ghana will be out of sovereign default by July 2025, and this follows its anticipation of the country completing its external debt restructuring by the end of June 2025. The UK-based firm disclosed this in its latest webinar on debt restructuring in Ghana, Zambia, and Ethiopia, and it is optimistic that Ghana will also complete the non-bond debt treatment by the end of this year. So to help us unpack this, I'm being joined by Patrick Abankwa, financial analyst and investment advisor. Mr. Abankwa, it's nice to have you around on the show.
Thank you very much once again for having me on the show. Okay,
you're welcome. So let's start. Is Fitch's projection of Ghana's exit from sovereign default right, looking at the indices they're putting on the table, and of course, given the country's complex economic challenges like, soaring inflation, high unemployment rates, and some other economic situations that we've seen play out in the country?
I think that the rating from Fitch obviously is based on some key indicators that they are projecting to see. What we need to put into context is that Ghana's economy is currently facing some significant challenges, and this is driven by unsustainable debt levels and some external pressures. While the country has made some strides in the last, let's say, 12 months, including having some robust economic growth, these achievements have been offset by rising inflation, currency depreciation, and a widening fiscal deficit. I think that government decision to seek IMF support was a necessary step to stabilize the economy and help to restore investor confidence. I think that the road to recovery will require prudent fiscal policies and some structural reforms and sustained effort to diversify the economy, which will take a bit of time. But I think that where Fitch sits, they are looking at the projection going into next year and a year afterwards. And I think that if you look at the indicators that we have seen so far, the improvement in these indicators, i.e. inflation coming down, the growth rate going up, this is indeed one projection that I subscribe to, and I think that is realistic, looking at the growth that we have seen in the last 6 months of the year.
Okay, so we also understanding that Fitch Ratings has actually come out to say that Fitch Ratings estimate that interest payments have been reduced by 8%, and it's also projecting about 5% for 2025, 4% for 2026. So when you look at the restructuring talks that has gone on between Ghana and the creditors, how would you describe it? Is it looking good for Ghana as we speak in terms of projections and the discussion so far?
Yeah, I think it's looking good for Ghana. First thing that the discussions have done is that it has reduced our debt burden in terms of immediate servicing of these debts. We got to a point where government obviously was not in the position to meet domestic debt repayment and also external debt. So having that agreement with IMF has lessened the burden, the immediate burden of having to cough up some foreign currencies to pay maturing debt. So that's the first thing. Again, this arrangement has helped us to begin to attract some foreign investment, and being able to implement this policy well has given some kind of confidence for investors who hitherto had taken their investment from Ghana, or those who had plans of bringing their investment to Ghana had taken the backstage to see what was going to happen. Most of these investors are now beginning to gain some confidence and bring their investment back into the country. And once these things are done, it helps to stabilize the economy. And stabilizing the economy goes with managing your debt, fiscal discipline, and some reforms which will help you to get more revenue going into the future. Because what about the case, the debt restructuring program is just a postponement of obligation. It's not that the obligation is no more. So if you don't put in the right mechanism to get the revenues in place for the future obligations, we'll get into maybe 10 years' time and we'll be back on the same roundtable discussing how Ghana should go into another debt exchange program.
So if you're beginning to see, investor confidence growing and the economy is attaining a bit of stability and probably we're seeing appreciable growth, does that mean that the coast is clear now for Ghana to eventually complete its external debt restructuring by the projected timeline?
Yeah, I think so. If government is a bit disciplined in terms of its capital expenditure, we stay within course when it comes to issues relating to procurement, and we're able to manage our debt situation well, then we should be able to get to the full agreement when it comes to the DDEP that we are experiencing at the moment. We are not out of the woods yet, I would say, because we still have issues relating to high inflation in this country. At the moment, inflation is around 20%, which is quite high. We still have exchange rates having some difficulty, the CD against the dollar still suffering. We still have interest rates in terms of debt and loans still very high. So we are not out of the woods yet, but I think that we are on the right track if government decide to be very disciplined and go according to the schedule that they've agreed with IMF.
And you don't think that the upcoming elections in the country will probably disrupt the restructuring talk flow? And probably investors who are looking at the dynamics in the Ghanaian market.
Elections usually have an impact on what investors would do or they are planning to do. And you find that around this time of the year, where we are just about some few days to election, investors will begin to take a backstage. They will take the let's wait and see approach to see whether who wins the next presidency, how does their policies affect us as an investor. So I think that all of these things are playing in, but it's not a major factor because the discussions with IMF have progressed very far. And that means that if investors have agreed to restructure their credits to Ghana, they are not going to take any stage and step at the moment. Just waiting for the election to go on and see what the new government will have for them by way of new agreement or improved agreement.
All right. Patrick Abankwa, financial analyst and an investment advisor, thank you so much for talking to us at this time. And we wish Ghana all the best too.
Thank you too. Thank you too.
Yeah. So that's it on today's edition of Business Edge anyway. You can follow us on social media at News Central TV. Our website, www.newscentral.africa. You can watch us on YouTube and every other platform. I am Lekon Obanjo. Enjoy the rest of your day.